Hello everyone and welcome back to Command Block Central. So I know I promised a behind the scenes look of my Minecraft chess project once I reached 250 subscribers. So that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video. And what that's going to be is an overview of the Path Mapper system, which is the functionality that follows all the move rules of chess and controls where a piece can or cannot move on the board. This is not necessarily a tutorial on how to set it up, it is just me going through my thought process and how I came up with the system. When I started command blocking, I knew that setting up a functioning chessboard would be an awesome project to work on. The board would allow you to select any piece you want and move it to any space you want, so you could play an actual game of chess with your Minecraft friends. But that was it. Nothing really that special. Just a board with pieces that you could move around and have to rely on your knowledge of chess and your opponent to determine if you were making a valid move. Then I thought, but wouldn't it be cool if somehow the rules of chess were programmed into each of the pieces? Rooks could only move forward, backward, left, and right. Bishops could only move diagonal, kind of like it is on chess.com or something. The thought of setting this up in Minecraft was as intimidating as it was intriguing, but I decided to give it a shot. And after many hours of racking my brain on how this would work, I finally came up with a system that allowed me to program the basic move functionality into each of the pieces in chess. I started with an 8x8 grid of black and white concrete for my chessboard and assigned a color for each piece type: wool for the white pieces and terracotta for the black pieces. Then, right above my board, I created a layer of knead redstone chain command blocks that target the block exactly 5 blocks below and clone move it over to this staging area when activated. Then a row of impulse command blocks here to activate the chain command blocks. Then another row of impulse command blocks here that set the blocks directly next to them to air. And finally, a command block that fills this gap with redstone blocks to activate the select piece functionality of the system. Now, based on where the board selector is on my layer of chain command blocks, which is represented by this redstone block, I can hit the select piece button and the selected piece will be moved to staging, where I could then trigger the next step in the system. Now that we're able to select a piece, we need to be able to move it to another space on the board. To do this, I added another layer, which I will call the move piece layer, which is essentially the same as the select piece layer. Each of these knead redstone chain command blocks will run a command that sets a redstone block exactly 5 blocks above it. This redstone block will be used to activate the move functionality of the system. Next, I added a layer of chain command blocks pointing down that will be running a command that clones the piece from staging and moves it back onto the board directly below the block. Right on top of that, I added a layer of impulse command blocks pointing up with a command that sets the block directly above it to air. This is the layer that will be manipulated based on what piece I select and where I can move it on the board. It is called the move logic layer, and I will go over how it works in a moment. Next, I added a layer of repeat command blocks that will allow me to place a sea lantern above any piece on the board I want to select or move. Then based on where I set the sea lantern, it will place a redstone block directly above between my select and move layers. Lastly, I added a button that activates my move piece layer. Now we are ready to see how this is all going to work, and I felt it would be easier to explain if I had just one piece on the board, which is going to be a rook. Okay, so if my rook is in the corner right here, the path it's going to be able to take is represented by these command blocks here. Front and back, left and right is the way the rook can move. So now what I need these command blocks to do is manipulate my move logic layer here. And what that would be is flipping these command blocks over so they're pointing down, so when they're activated, they can activate these chain command blocks here. So what these blocks here are going to do is clone this block here where the arrow is pointing down and clone it up to my move logic layer. So this one, for example, clones my block exactly 10 spaces above. So if I activate it like this, you can now see that the arrow is pointing down. So if I were to activate this block here, it would run my move command here. So I actually should have had my command blocks here rather than the layer below. So it's going to be 9 spaces above rather than 10, but that's okay. So now I just need a way to activate all these blocks at the same time. So what I'm going to do is put a layer of just blue wool or light blue wool, just like that. Then I'm going to make a button that basically turns all the light blue wool into redstone. So it's just a fill, redstone block, replace, light blue wool in this layer here. So if I push the button, it'll do that and activate all these command blocks here, which then set all these blocks pointing down. So now when I select my rook here, so hit select, it moves it over to staging. And let's say I want to move it here. Then I hit move, and it'll move my rook to this spot right here. So by now you're probably thinking, that's great and all, but that's only going to work if the rook is in this spot here. I mean, what if the rook is literally anywhere else on the board? What if the rook is right here? That path is going to look something like this. Or maybe the rook is more in the center of the board like this. If that's the case, the path is going to have to look a little more like this. So I needed a way to dynamically populate these command blocks here based on where my piece was on the board. This is where the path mapper comes into play. And this one here is specific to the way the rook can move. And it has to be this size because the furthest distance a piece can move on the board is 7 spaces. And it has my command blocks that clone the command block facing down, as well as my light blue wool that's going to be turned into redstone to activate the command blocks. So what I need is for this path mapper, which is specific to the rook, to clone into this area here based on where my rook is right here. And to do that, I added another layer just like my move and select layers. And what it does is it clones the entire path mapper for the rook, and it clones it exactly 14 blocks below and offsets it a little bit so it can line up directly above my piece. So if I hit my clone in path mapper button here, it'll activate this block here with the redstone block right above it, and it should clone in my path mapper directly above my piece here. Let's see if it works. There we go. So yeah, it cloned in my path mapper for the rook right where it needs to be. So now what I can do is hit activate, and it'll change all this light blue wool to redstone, activating these command blocks here, and it has updated my move logic layer right here. So now what if the piece is over here? So I'll clone in my path mapper. Okay, good. Looks like that's all lined up. Then I'll activate it. Okay, good. And you can see here the correct path. All these command blocks have turned upside down and are now pointing down, so I could select any one of them and move my piece there. So now I will go over kind of the entire process of selecting the piece, running and activating the path mapper, and then moving the piece. So I have my logic layer, it's all reset, all the command blocks are pointing up now. So if I hit select piece, it moves it over to staging. Then I'll clone in my path mapper. Okay, looks like it's lined up. Good. Then I will activate my path mapper. Okay, good. My logic layer is all updated. Then I'll clear the path mapper. And then let's say I want to move down down here. So I hit move, and my piece moved. So then if I want to automate this more, I can just link all these command block steps together using repeaters. So then when I hit select, it'll just run through the process. Just like that. Then I can just move my selector somewhere else, hit move, and it'll move right there. Now that we are able to select and move a piece to another space, we have to take into account what to do with the other pieces on the board. So let's go ahead and start with our rook in the corner here and put a friendly piece here, here, and here. So now when I clone in my path mapper, we're actually going to get rid of these. So we're going to select our piece, clone in our path mapper. Okay. So now because there's a friendly piece here, here, and here, I need this block here. I need something to happen to this block here and this block here, because essentially I need to disable being able to move my rook here or here. So what I needed to do was add another layer of chain command blocks here, and these are set to always active. And what they do is they look at the block 19 spaces below, which are the pieces on the board, and it sets the block 17 spaces below to white wool here. And that is these command blocks here. So if I clear my path mapper and kind of start over from scratch, I added this detect pieces step in here that will activate this top layer here. So let's go ahead and just run through the process here. So I'll select my piece, clone in the path mapper, then run my detect pieces. Okay, so as you can see here, this command block and this command block changed to white piece of wool. So now when I activate my path mapper, this space here is no longer available, and this space here is no longer available because there are already friendly pieces in those spaces. And this piece here doesn't really matter because it is not in the path of our rook right here. So that's all great and all, but you may have noticed a really big problem here still. So my rook is here, and I'm able to move it here, but not here because there's already a piece there. But also here, 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 and here. Now, rooks cannot move through pieces or jump over pieces. So my rook can move here, which is fine, but I also have to make it so it can't move here, 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 or here. Same on this side. My rook is here. It can move any of these three spaces here. Not here because there's a piece in the way, but that means these three spaces also have to be inaccessible for the rook. So what I needed to do was update my path mapper here, and that involved changing all these command blocks to chain command blocks. They still have the exact same command, but are set to always active, and they basically point to the next one in the line, going off in all directions here. Then I added just a plain old command block to activate the chain commands, and my light blue wool in the center here that will be changed to redstone to activate these 4 command blocks here. And what it's going to do, if I select my piece, clone in my path mapper, then detect pieces. So what it's going to do when I activate it, it's going to run this command here, which is going to run this one here and this one here, but it's going to stop here and not run any of these 3 here. Same with this side here, it's going to run this one, but because there's a block of wool here, it's not going to run any of these. So now if I hit activate path mapper, like that, just ignore these here. So now as you can see, it changed this one to be pointing down so I can move here. This one here it didn't change because there's a piece here, but it also didn't change any of these because it wasn't able to run these chain commands here. Same with on this side. It was able to run these three here, but because there's a piece here, it stopped the chain commands from running, and it was not able to run these three here. So now if I try to move, let's just try to move here. If I hit move, nothing happens because my rook, which was here, cannot move through this piece here. But let's try here. And look at that. It moved right there. Perfect. So now we need to take into account if there are any opposing pieces on the board, which will need to be treated slightly different than our friendly pieces here. So let's put some red terracotta here and here. So these two terracotta pieces will represent opposing pieces. So now when we select our piece, clone in our path mapper. So I can't just have this block here changing into white wool because I need to be able to move here, essentially capturing this piece. So what I did in this case was I created a new block here with the arrow pointing down, and it has the same command as the ones in my path mapper. So now when I hit detect pieces, what's going to happen here? So unlike with my wool here and it changing it to white wool, with terracotta it's going to change it to my command block here pointing down. So all these commands will still run. This one will still run, but because it's pointing down, these three will not. So I will still have the option to move here and capture this piece. So if I activate my path mapper like that, it should update my move logic layer. And as you can see, this one is now pointing down and still giving me the option to move there. So if I take my selector, move it there, and hit move, I'll be able to move to the same space as that opposing piece, essentially capturing it. So now all I needed to do was create a path mapper for each of the pieces. In this case, I just did the bishop and the knight. So the bishop, as you can see, can only move diagonal, and the knight can move kind of in this pattern here. L format, if you will. So now when I have all my pieces back on the board, based on the piece that moves over to staging, we can have the system clone in the appropriate path mapper based on what piece is there. So because we have the rook selected, or the orange piece, we hit a button here. Okay, good. So our orange path mapper has warped in. Okay, now let's see what happens if we have the knight selected, or the yellow piece. So we'll hit select. So nice. As you can see, the yellow path mapper cloned in because we selected the knight. Now let's try it with the bishop. I have my green piece selected, so we'll go ahead and hit the button. And as you can see, the green path mapper has cloned in for our bishop there. So that right there is the path mapper system. A system I built in Minecraft to program the basic move rules of chess into each of the individual pieces. I have so many command block project ideas I want to work on, but there are only so many hours in the day. My goal is to continue to innovate and push the limits of what is possible in vanilla Minecraft, and at the same time, continue making Minecraft videos for you all. If you found this video interesting, be sure to leave a like. And if you want to see more command block projects like this one, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Again, thank you for all your support and for checking out the video. I will catch you next time.